At 59, Troy Aikman remains an American icon, one the country can never forget. From a young boy who once had to wear casts to correct crippled legs, he rose to become one of the NFL's greatest quarterbacks, a man who guided the Dallas Cowboys through the dazzling golden era of the 1990s, capturing 3 Super Bowl titles, 6 Pro Bowl selections, a Super Bowl MVP, and eventually earning a place in the Hall of Fame. Class of 2006, these accomplishments didn't just carve his name into history, they engraved it deeply into the hearts of millions of fans. A symbol of ice-cold composure and an almost supernatural ability to read the game, Aikman transformed the Cowboys into the embodiment of American football, setting the standard for every quarterback who would follow him. He never needed to shout or flaunt. His leadership came through his gaze, his throws sharp and precise, steady enough to make the entire team believe that victory was inevitable. Americans remember him on those explosive Super Bowl nights, under the stadium lights, through the roar of Texas Stadium whenever number 8 stepped onto the turf, a vision of power, coolness, and invincibility. Yet behind all that glory lies a painful truth you dare to confront. At 59, each morning for Troy begins with back pain that cuts like a knife, the lasting legacy of thousands of hits endured to deliver glory to America. On some days, he sees his hand tremble slightly in the mirror, harsh reminder that concussions never truly fade. On many silent nights, while the world sleeps, Troy still jolts awake to ringing in his head the NFL's permanent imprint. Fans recall him through triumph and victory, but Troy remembers the NFL through terrifying moments of confusion, forgetting which game he played, how many passes he threw, or even how he left the field. America once loved me, and I gave it more than my body could handle, he once said, not a complaint, but the simple truth of a man who traded his youth, his health, his memory, and his private life to become a legend. And it is amid the shards of that pain that Troy's resolve shines brightest. No whining, no collapse, just quietly moving forward as if true greatness is measured by the ability to rise again long after the stadium lights have dimmed. If you want to explore the untold, darker corners of Troy Aikman's life, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter, even after the NFL spotlight faded, leaving scars that time cannot erase. You know that Troy's grueling journey began before he could even walk. Troy Aikman did not enter the world with a perfect body. From birth, both of his legs were encased in tight casts, heel to knee, as though fate itself wanted to challenge him. The image of the newborn, lying still under layers of white plaster, unable to move, marked the harsh opening chapter of a life inseparable from pain and endurance. At 6 months, Troy still couldn't stand or kick like other babies. Each time his mother gently lifted and rotated his tiny legs, following the doctor's instructions, she noticed the corners of his mouth tighten in pain, not loud crying, but a small, heartbreaking groan from a baby who didn't yet know words, already familiar with suffering. The doctor delivered a statement as cold as steel: this boy may never play sports. For most children, that's merely a medical opinion. For Troy, it became a shadow that would haunt his life, a prediction of the relentless battle between his will and his body. His mother, patient and loving, masked her fear with smiles in front of her son. But at night, when the house fell silent, she would sit by the crib, staring at Troy's tiny legs locked in braces, wondering if he would live a life constrained by limits. He did not choose his father, a man of few words, who chose silence. That silence was not indifference, it was the uncertainty of how to confront disappointment. It was a heavy, almost suffocating silence. Every family member felt the weight of sorrow. No one dared speak aloud, afraid that voicing it might make it true forever. Troy's early years unfolded as a relentless cycle of hospitals, therapy rooms, and pitying glances from adults. To them, he was a flawed child, a fragile body few believed could ever run, kick a ball, or play like other kids. Yet there was one thing they couldn't see: the quiet stubbornness growing inside that little boy. When his legs failed to hold him up, his mind began learning how to stand firm against life. The stories his family tells of young Troy are of a child who cried endlessly, but of a boy who gritted his teeth, the kind of teeth clenching that only those who've endured long-term pain understand. No shouting, no lashing out, just silently enduring, as if his young soul already knew this wasn't fleeting pain, but a lifelong test. Stopped by the age of 2, the casts finally came off. But freedom didn't come with them. Instead, he had to wear heavy orthopedic shoes, linked together by a metal bar. Every step dragged the symbolic chains of the limits life had imposed on him. The rare childhood photos that survived show Troy standing in the yard, legs wide, shoes held rigid by the bar. That wasn't the stance of a child ready to run, it was the stance of a boy learning to conquer what his body insisted he couldn't. He couldn't give up. Anyone else might have crumbled, not Troy. From his first encounters with the world, a painful truth was clear, and that truth later became his strength. No one was coming to save him. No doctor could guarantee he would ever run. No parent could trade his weak body for a new one. No pitying glance could turn hardship into opportunity. If he wanted to walk like other children, he had to walk for himself. If he wanted a life beyond casts, he had to break them himself. The mindset of "I have to be stronger than my body" began right there, not on a football field, not in Super Bowls, not through legendary throws, but in the quiet, brutal struggle of lifting a leg that refused to cooperate. That moment shaped the destiny of a man America would later call unbreakable, steadfast, and fearless long before he faced the thunderous hits of NFL linebackers or wrist memory loss from concussions. Troy had already trained himself to confront pain before he was tall enough to see over the kitchen table. That earliest adversity carved itself quietly into him, preparing him for a future where glory awaited. But the price was his own body. While other children learned to run, Troy learned to endure. While they learned to throw, he learned to rise after falling. Troy's dream at first was brutally simple: to walk freely on his own 2 feet. No one could have imagined that this small dream would one day become the foundation for going further than anyone dared to imagine, filling massive stadiums, carrying the hopes of an entire city, and becoming a legend America cannot replace. But to truly grasp the depth of his glory, we must remember that every spark of Troy's brilliance began with a painful truth. He never had a perfect body, but he had an unyielding will, a will so strong it forced his body to obey, planting the seed of both tragedy and greatness in his life, a life that began in casts but surged forward with spirit. Nothing could break him. Troy grew up with legs finally freer, yet his soul never fully escaped the feeling of being different. And just as he began adjusting to life in California, fate dealt the Aikman family another sharp turn, a move to Henrietta, Oklahoma, a town too small for big dreams, where the night sky was quieter than the loneliness of a boy who had only just learned to stand steady. For most families, moving is simply a change of address. But for a boy like Troy, who had already spent half his childhood fighting his own body, it meant starting completely over. On his first day at school in Oklahoma, Troy had no friends, no familiar faces, no one who remembered him. Where once looks had carried sympathy, in this new place, sympathy quickly turned to indifference. The California boy became the new kid, and in small towns, the new kid is usually the outsider. Local children had grown up together, played on the same fields, and attended full festivals with generations of family. Troy stood on the outskirts of that circle every recess, unsure of where he belonged. His eyes searched the playground, hoping to find something to hold onto, someone to smile at him, but always landing in empty air. That isolation, whether deliberate or not, cut deep into the heart of a child trying to find his worth. Oklahoma was harsh in a quiet way, the summer sun baking red dirt roads, the winter wind howling across empty yards. No tall buildings, no bustling streets, no crowds to make a boy feel small yet part of something bigger. Loneliness was unavoidable. It lingered in the vast, cloudless sky and echoed in the sound of his own footsteps on deserted sidewalks. And then football came, not as some glamorous dream, not as a grand escape. Football arrived at the exact moment Troy needed something, anything, to make him feel seen. At first, it was just a game. The other kids dragged him into a scuffed leather ball tossed across the dusty field behind the school. But to Troy, that ball carried a weight no other child could understand. It held the hope of being noticed, of being valued, of hearing someone call his name without pity. Gradually, football became the only place where the boy truly felt he existed. Not because he was immediately exceptional, he wasn't. But every time the ball left his hand, soaring through the air, Troy felt a little lighter, as if he were throwing away his fear of being worthless. He never spoke of it, but football became the language through which he addressed a sadness he could not share. Evenings in Oklahoma were colder than Troy remembered. After dinner, when the house lights dimmed, he would quietly take the ball to the backyard, where weeds tangled with red dirt. The night was pitch black, the wind whistling through old trees, and the boy stood alone, tossing the ball into the silent darkness. No cheers, no teammates, no coach, just the wind, the slap of the ball against his hands, and the quiet sigh of a boy trying to outrun the thought, "I'm not good enough." Those throws had no target. They were survival throws, aimed to push back the feeling of insignificance, throws to prove he existed in this strange new world. Under Oklahoma's endless sky, Troy learned something he wouldn't fully understand for years. Sometimes, to become anything at all, a person first has to survive. Those lonely nights taught Troy lessons that Super Bowls never would, truths that titles never mention, lessons glory never speaks of. Greatness doesn't come from applause. It comes from the choke-back sob of a child refusing to let the world forget him. And right there, on that isolated patch of ground, tossing into silence, Troy Aikman took his first slow, solitary, determined steps on a path that would lead to a destiny no one could have predicted. As the lonely Oklahoma nights forged an iron spirit within the boy, a bigger dream began to form in his heart. No one in that small town could see it yet, but Troy's throwing arm was growing sharper by the day. By the time he reached high school at Henrietta, that same dream, the one he had whispered into the void on countless nights, finally began to take shape in reality. A scholarship from the University of Oklahoma for a boy born with legs in casts was practically a miracle. When Troy arrived in Norman, he carried a fierce belief that this would be the place where he became a historic quarterback, where the dreams of his childhood would finally blossom into reality. But like every turning point in his life, the hope didn't last long against fate, who at the time was known for its run-heavy system, a machine that crushed opponents, but also crushed the role of a passing quarterback. Troy was like a pianist dropped into an orchestra that played only drums. He knew he had talent, yet no one would let him show it. In early practices, Troy tried to hide his disappointment. He wanted to believe that effort and grit could change everything. But day after day, he barely threw the ball. He handed off, ran plays, and watched a run-first system work flawlessly without ever needing someone like him, the role he had dreamed of since childhood. The leader, the one who shaped the game, became just a shadow. Then came the real blow during one fateful practice. As Troy spun to throw, a hit from the defense twisted his ankle at a sickening angle. The first sensation wasn't pain, it was the cold, unmistakable crack deep inside the bone. Then the pain exploded, fire racing up his leg, dropping him to the turf. Lying on the grass, Troy couldn't move. The deep green of the field, the vast Oklahoma sky, teammates running past, all blurred into a mocking scene, a stage of glory that might never be his. The team doctor was blunt: "You're out long term. If you're not careful, this ankle may never be the same." To most people, that was just medical news. To Troy, it was a death sentence. The dream he had carried from his Oklahoma backyard to the OU locker room now lay still, wrapped in white bandages, swollen purple, and burning worse within OU's run-first system. An injured quarterback was little more than a broken tool. No one said it aloud, but the looks from coaches, teammates, and people in the hall carried the same silent question: do we really need him? A kid who had spent his childhood terrified That he wasn't good enough for a boy who had fought constantly to prove his body didn't define his worth now fell straight into his deepest nightmare. Being discarded, Troy tried to rehab. He forced himself to stand on the half-healed ankle, limping through runs, clinging to the fragile hope that OU would eventually need him. But every week, the team won without him. Every victory was proof. The system didn't need a passer like him, and when his body wouldn't heal fast enough, Troy faced a truth many young athletes refuse to accept. Sometimes the problem isn't talent, it's an environment that refuses to give you a chance. The decision to leave OU for UCLA was not easy. It cut like a knife to the pride he had spent his whole life protecting. When the news broke, the backlash was immediate. People called Troy a quitter, not tough enough, not real. On Oklahoma football forums, the mockery poured in. If he was that good, he would have stayed. What kind of quarterback throws when nobody wants it? Let him go. Who cares? Even though no one said it to his face. Those words shredded every piece of self-worth he had tried to build. The night before leaving OU, Troy sat alone in his tiny dorm room. The weak yellow desk lamp cast light on his still swollen, roughly bandaged ankle. Wine through the window carried distant cheers from practice, the sounds he once believed he would be the center of. Troy bowed his head, gently tapping his ankle, feeling the throb sync with his heartbeat. That tap was the question he didn't dare voice. Does everything I believed in even matter? In that moment, he wasn't a future legend or Hall of Fame quarterback. He was just a young man, hit way too hard, way too soon, by life.